Yeah.
We got another section called Pro Tips.
Pro Tips.
And Pro Tips is directed to somebody maybe trying to buy their first laundromat. Do you have any tips for the first timer, something that maybe they should be aware of or be thinking about or doing before they buy their first laundromat?
Sure. Well, I certainly love speaking to prospective laundromat owners. You may not know this, but we have a program where we send an invitation. I want to speak to every single brand new member of Coin Laundry Association, and quite often they are first timers. So I'm having these conversations multiple times a week, and so we kind of speak that language. What I'm hearing a lot from people are looking to buy their first store is kind of that tire kicking and the frustration. I have looked at 5 stores. I've looked at 10 stores. I've looked at 15 stores in the area. And what I try to tell them is a shortcut for that analysis is talk about the lease first. Everyone wants to talk about the revenue or age and condition of the equipment or why the person is selling. And again, those are all things you're going to want to discover at some point in your process. But if the lease isn't right, the rest of it is a moot point. Right? The revenue doesn't matter. What equipment's in there doesn't matter. How many parking spaces don't matter. So, when you're going through that arduous process of kissing a lot of frogs, if you can focus on the lease first, and oftentimes that lease, if it is bad, it can be improved. But I view that as one of the more compelling shortcuts for first-time laundromat owners that may be in a little bit of a fatigue stage of looking at a lot of existing stores. Have a laser focus on the lease, because if the lease isn't right, the rest doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I do, webinars every week. And when we do one on how to buy your first laundromat, one of the things that I'll say in there is, your lease is arguably your most important asset. It's at least as important as your machines, if not even more important than your machines.
More so.
Because, because if you have a bad lease, I can't tell you how many previous owners I've talked to who have, gotten out of the business because they had a bad lease and, their laundromat just couldn't support it. And so, I think that's huge. And finding a good lease is probably even more important than finding a good location, or at least on par with that, because that lease is going to be one of your 2 biggest expenses, right? Between maybe labor might be your other big expense, but it's a huge asset or a huge liability to your business.
Right. And if we flip that for the existing operators, the best thing you can do today to make your laundromat more valuable is to improve the lease, add time, set the terms. Because when it comes time for you to sell, which may be on your schedule or life schedule, you never know what's going to happen. So if you're on that end of the transaction, making your lease longer, making it more competitive is, again, probably more important than you increasing the net. You have to have that lease right, whether you're from the seller's perspective or the buyer's perspective.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Awesome pro tip. And for anybody looking to buy their first laundromat, that's a great shortcut, and not even just a shortcut, but that's just good, solid advice in general that you need to be looking at. Check out those leases, find out the length left on them and the terms left on them. So awesome pro tip. Thanks for sharing that.